Welcome back to another episode of the Blitz Break here on a Friday. And after some technical difficulties, we are live and ready to roll here. Thank you for joining us again on another Friday. Hopefully you're tuning in here on YouTube or any of our other platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and certainly catching up with us on all of our social platforms. As I said, I'm your host, Phil Rasmussen, joined as always by a couple of my most favorite co-hosts. Today, I'm going to start over here to the left with the lady in black,
yes,
and the social media guru with. I love the bracelets. You are blinging it out.
Blinging
today.
it out today.
See, I made the same comment.
I know.
Yes.
Wow.
Social media connector extraordinaire, mortgage, title, real estate, you name it. If you've been in this business and you don't know Julie, then you really haven't been in this business. So, Julie Shroyer, welcome back to the show.
So glad to be here with both of you and Ryan. I'm honored. Thank you.
Excited to have some sort of a sanity sitting next to me because my partner in crime and the co-host to the right here went back to the old shoes, which really depresses me because I can see what looks like an old leather baseball glove amount of scratches on a pair of shoes here. But our legendary Texan, our mortgage industry veteran, coach, teacher, resident whipping post for everything that goes wrong right now technologically, Mr. Buzz Howard.
You know, I didn't have anything to do with the technical problems. I think Julie, when she walked in, she knocked over all the cameras, tripped over, unplugged everything, and that's my story, and I'm going to stick to it. And, you know, the word for this week later when we talk a little bit about the market is slightly.
Slightly?
Slightly.
Slightly.
Give you an example. This week I had to make some repairs, so I slightly used a little bit of super glue for you on these shoes. But anyway,
and
guys,
they made a slight difference. And when I say slight, that's being generous. Those things are atrocious.
You know what I want to do is get to our guest, actually, Ryan Lundquist. You know, I can't claim that him and I are good friends yet. We will be. He's our guest today, longtime appraiser, writes a blog. And when we started looking for guests for this, Ryan, I will say that I actually made this comment in one of our meetings. I go, we got to get Ryan Lundquist. I mean, everybody knows Ryan. He has the greatest insights. And Justin, one of our co-hosts, actually said, I actually am friends with him. And so Justin reached out. So honored that you would join us today, Ryan, to talk to us about appraisals and the market today. And welcome to our podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. And I appreciate not getting blamed for the technical difficulties. Appraisers get the blame for everything. And so thanks, for once not. So thank you.
Wow, that's such an astute point. I didn't think about it. I could have totally rolled with that, and you would have probably just fallen in line. You're so used to it, right?
Missed opportunity.
Yes. Story of my life.
Just wait, though, before the end of the podcast, I'm sure we'll blame you for something. So, I wanted to I wanted to kind of kick us off with a couple of questions. It's how long have you been in the appraisal industry?
I started as a trainee in 2002 and got my license in 2003.
Yeah.
So if you do the math, however long that is. So.
23 years. Wow.
Yay. Good job. Yeah.
That's I'll tell you, many years of mortgage banking background has allowed me to do that kind of mathematics on the fly.
Well, that's, you got a few good years of the appraisal industry. That 2002-3 market was pretty good. See, I got in 2006, and I had about 6 months of what would be considered still a good part of the industry. And I spent most of my time building my book of business, getting a network of realtors started, but really helping a lot of people that were in NAGAM option arms refinance out of them. And I saw the ugly side of the industry as, fixed income, state workers were sitting there telling me they could only make the minimum payment on a multiple option arm, where they were losing $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in equity every month. And when you would sit down and tell them, hey, if you don't want to go backwards, you're going to need to pay this much. And they would go, there's no chance in the world I could ever make that payment. And cut my teeth doing that at a time when that was prevalent. And then pretty quickly the industry turned. So you had a few good years, and I would like to say I was too young, dumb, and I can't say I'm still young. I'm still dumb, but that really was kind of my opportunity to kind of grow in the business, was during that heyday. So in that 02-03 window, let's talk a little maybe about what it was like to be somebody who kind of got your foundation in that 02-03 window, and then got to see firsthand such a dramatic shift in the industry and a very significant swing back during that period of time. I would love to hear your thoughts as an appraiser from that perspective in that window of time.
No, sure. And that just feels like such a different world ago. Kids were being born during that time and lived in a different house. It's hard to even remember, but I mean, the market was really, cranking during those days. And, it was sort of, volume was growing and prices were exploding, especially in 2005. But, then the music stopped. And I think we, experienced this significant crash afterwards, in 2007 and 2008, prices screamed down, and then the market began to recover after just a couple years. But yeah, I think it was a really good business to get into. There was so much refinance volume and purchase volume, but then the market really changed, and I started to go, okay, how do I make it? And I've never seen a declining market before personally, professionally, and I sure got acquainted with one very quickly. And yeah, some meager years. I think anyone in real estate, back in those days, that's why I don't have a baseball card collection. I sold all my cards during those days. I was looking around the house going, hey, how can I make my mortgage right now? This is a struggle. I remember, it almost makes me want to cry, but one year, it must have been 2006 or 2007, my wife and I, we wrote each other letters for Christmas.
Wow.
Hang on. And there was something so sweet about that, and innocent, just because we had young kids, and we're just like, we're gonna pour into the kids, but there wasn't a lot of money. And I'm really glad the tide has changed, and today we are buying each other Christmas presents. But it's, I think, when times are tough in real estate, it reminds you of what's important. And it reminds me of today, that I think this market, like, the only stat that is literally similar to back then is the number of sales happening. The market is so different in every single way except the number of sales. And so it's really been this real estate recession for almost 4 years now, with the number of sales being chopped by about 30% of the normal number. And so I think this market either gives people the boot and kicks them out, or it serves as a mirror to show them who they are and who they need to become to sustain business and to move forward, and to find, how do I make it in a market like this, and how do I build relationships? And so anyway, I don't know. I think challenges, do that to us. And that's the way I view today's market anyway. And, I'm grateful for that opportunity, and, to say, how can I continue to grow my network? How can I serve people? How can I be a resource? How can I make more money? All those questions.
So from a little bit of a moving forward to, before the camera started rolling today, we were talking a little bit about, this current market and what you feel about what's going on right now. Can you share a little bit of your insight on, are the sellers moving back into the market? Do listings, that type of stuff? What's the current trend?
Yeah, so last year it was a weird vibe where sellers really started to back off around April. There's more economic uncertainty, what's going on with the job market and tariffs and all this stuff. And so seller behavior changed. And what that's done is that's made the housing market tighter today. Okay, the good news though, for 3 months in a row in our region, we've had more new listings than 2024 levels. Like for 4 previous months toward the end of last year, it actually dipped below 2024 levels. And that's a concern. If we want this market to heal, we need more listings. And the last thing that we want to see are sellers pulling back. And so right now, we're seeing a little bit more sellers. Nothing too crazy, but 3 months in a row of some growth. Okay, I count that as a win. And we're seeing buyer demand that's maybe slightly better than last year. And so the market today feels a little bit more competitive than last year. Technically, yeah, buyer demand's really low, but slightly more, and then slightly fewer new listings hitting the market. So yeah, spring vibes right now though. There's properties that get into contract very quickly. I think the bulk of properties lately have not needed a price reduction, but when price reductions are needed, it's about 5% or so. And so, larger home selling, more multiple offers, all the normal stuff that we would see in spring, we're seeing that right now in today's market in 2026.
Those are all positive indicators and the kinds of things that homeowners, prospective home buyers all like to hear, that, instill confidence in their personal and lifestyle decisions that are motivating them to take action in one capacity or another as a buyer or seller. I think the word just a healthy market, generally speaking, is the kind of thing they all want to hear, right? And anything that points to that. So great indications. Julie?
Yeah, I'm curious. If you have a chance to watch his presentations, Ryan, your presentations are always clear and concise, and you don't hold anything back, and you're kind of like a neutral party. You have no skin in the game, one side or the other. Can you give me, like, for this next year coming up, what is the most positive thing you're seeing, and maybe the most negative, and not in that order?
Well, so it depends. I think people view positive and negative in different ways. And I think one of the most positive things we've seen is that, price metrics are down 2.5% this year. And I look at that and go, great, because more buyers and sellers can participate if we have slightly lower prices. Okay. And if rates are slightly lower, what that means is that we have a market that's where affordability has improved a little bit. Right. But I think some people look at the housing market and go, man, it is bad news if prices are down a little. And I see it exactly the opposite. There's nothing holy about a market that's unattainable. And we want a market that's healthy where both buyers and sellers can participate. Okay. And so the hope for this year is that we get a little bit more buyer volume back. Okay. January and February, they're going to be low months. The hope is that in March and beyond, we start to see a little bit more. Okay. In the region, Placer and El Dorado County have pulled a little bit more weight. They were the reason why in 2025, we had slightly more volume in 2024. And so, shout out Sacramento County, pull some more weight this year. And so we want to see this year where we get a little bit more. The market's still going to be subdued, but the hope is that it'll be stuck, but a little bit less unstuck.
Very. And a prominent magazine just named Folsom the #1 city to move to. And I can't remember which one.
In California or in the nation?
I think it was nation, but I'm not going to go on a record, but maybe we'll just say California for now. That's still a big win.
Well, as a new Folsom resident, I can certainly speak to a lot of the reasons that I think Folsom is an attractive market to and city to move to is that the planned unit development that they've done out there is very enticing for families. There's lots of parks, there's lots of very safe walkways. The sidewalks are separated from the roads. There's a lot of logic placed into what families would like to do to be outside. There's a little bit of a shortage at the moment of grocery stores and restaurants that are not yet built with the homes on that side of 50 on Folsom, but
south side of 50, yeah,
on that south side, but you can see that it's coming and they're building and they're getting ready. But the homes and the neighborhoods are great. They've done a wonderful job of altering the elevation street by street where you don't feel like you're, you know, in a flat neighborhood where you're looking at people.
Right.
Like every street seems to have an elevation where you have a view and you can see, regardless of the price points, which is really kind of cool. You can see those homes that are lower priced, and by lower priced, I'm saying, you know, $600,000-$700,000 up to, you know, the multi-million-dollar ones. But that's a beautiful part of it. I think that's an attractive component, and they have an opportunity to kind of take advantage of what's available in 2026 as information about how to build a community that is very conducive to family living. So I see that. What do you see, Ryan? Like you mentioned Sacramento pulling its weight. For those of us that have grown up, Carmichael kid, I used to say I was a real estate agent's dream because my parents moved like 8 times, but never left the city of Carmichael. And so they just bounced around from one little area to another. Those older neighborhoods where, you know, as an appraiser, they make your life hard because you got the $2.5 million mansion next to the shack that's ready to fall down, next to the you know, brand new subdivision of 5 homes that a you know, private builder built next to a what's that like in your world as an appraiser when you're in some of these older neighborhoods where there's not a lot of consistency and it's very spread out? Because I think that's a question that a lot of home buyers and even lenders have about how to value a home and how to determine what's a suitable appraised value. And I know there's a bunch of metrics, but talk a little bit about how you approach that for people that aren't buying in the tract homes.
Yeah, no, the tract homes are simple. You have West Roseville and Elk Grove or South Folsom. And not that there can't be a disparity, but it's nice when you can look over the past 2 years and go, hey, great, there were 7 model match sales. How did these compete with everything else? But I think you get in Carmichael and portions of Fair Oaks. I call it especially Fair Oaks funky, where, you know, you have this custom mid-century modern home, you know, this $2 million property, and then something that will sell for 500,000, you know, right next door. And so it is funky, it's less conforming, but that's where I think for comps, we always have to ask the question, where should we go? It's not how far you can go for comps, but where you should go. And where you should go is, you know, we have 2 options today. We either can go out further or we can go back further in time in the immediate area. And I say do both. You know, really go back further over the past few years, understand, you know, what does this location have to offer for, you know, sales? What are buyers paying for this location? And then understand the market as you go out a little further, because then that gives us clues for, okay, where should we be choosing comps from? And sometimes it's really tight, like, man, I'm going to stay within these few streets and that's it. I'd rather use much older sales and adjust for how the market's changed. And other times I'm going to be going out to other pockets because, hey, buyers are also going to those pockets. Okay. I don't want to cross the, you know, freeway into a totally different market that's higher or lower. We got to be really careful about cherry picking, but we just got to ask, if this house wasn't available, what would a buyer realistically purchase? And that's why we want to study the past and also competitive adjacent areas.
Do you find that's one of the ones that you, as an appraiser, see the most, you know, pushback, or that you tend to get the most questions, and that creates kind of where, you know, your experience becomes more important? You know, when people survey and ultimately handle the way appraisals are not only ordered, but the rules around ordering appraisals and who you can work with and how you go about the selection process. You know, you've got situations like one of my favorites is Tahoe or Truckee, where you get people that will drive in from 2 hours away to come in and appraise a home, and you'll get complaints from people in the community like, how can this person appraise a home? They have no idea what it's like to live in Truckee. And, you know, you've got a variety of different opinions on things, but what do you think makes the biggest difference for the industry when you have experts like yourself and then maybe people without that trying to navigate that exact scenario you just described? Because as a homeowner, I want to know I'm getting a good deal. I want to make sure I'm not overpaying. I want to make sure as a seller I'm not getting quote unquote, ripped off and underselling my home for what it's worth. We all know a home is worth what a buyer and a seller are willing to pay for it, but then there's a bunch of other variables. So what's your take on kind of your industry and those involved, and what separates you guys that's really important for people to pay attention to?
Well, I think geographic competence is the key. Like, do you know the local market, and are you competent to appraise there? Like, right, I'm giving a market presentation in Nevada County in May. I'm really excited. I'm getting hired to talk about the market there, but I don't appraise there. There's two different things. I can talk about what the market's doing, but I'm going to defer to my local colleagues. There's 2 or 3 who work in that market where I say, you don't want someone from a city boy like me. You want to hire someone who's located in Nevada County. And I think something similar in every neighborhood, locally. And there are going to be some appraisers who have more experience in East Sacramento or parts of Folsom or Carmichael or Fair Oaks or Roseville or whatever. And we just want to tap into that. Appraisers have the responsibility to say, yes, I'm a good fit for that, or no, I'm not. Okay. But one of the problems on the lender side of things is that it's sort of a system that caters towards the lowest possible price sometimes. It's almost like fishing for the bottom and then sometimes complaining about the results, And look, appraisers are still responsible. Appraisers need to say yes or no and have boundaries. But if the system is, the AMC model is created in such a way to say, hey, we want the fastest and we want the cheapest, you may not attract quality either, And so I think fundamentally the system, I think, feels broken and maybe doesn't, attract quality. And so I know for me, I've really diversified into private appraisals. And so for lots of different reasons, but it almost feels like a sinking ship in some regards with, the appraisal model as it pertains to lenders. And so I think that, there's some issues there. There's maybe some growth that's possible.
I got one.
So one of the things I was going to ask you about, technology. We talk a lot about technology on this podcast. We talk about the use of AI tools.
And by that, we do a lot of therapy for Buzz to try to help him overcome his like severe anxiety around using his phone, his computer, and in general technology.
I'm a technology black hole. I know that. But and we've got people that are worse in the company.
This is true. This is true.
So along those lines, talking about AI tools, even in the lending world, we're starting to see more and more what's called appraisal waivers, where based on the property and its history, where the lenders, the investors are not even asking for an appraisal. I guess the question I'd ask is what do you see happening as we move forward? You talk a little bit about, you said sinking ship, but how is AI going to affect the way that you do appraisals? I'm sure you're already utilizing tools that help you do the research and all of that kind of stuff. But where do you think this all is going from a standpoint of appraisal waivers and automated appraisals and all of those kinds of subjects?
No, sure. I mean, I think having mass data, it changes every industry. And as an appraiser, I look at that and go, hey, there are situations where a lender has enough information that maybe they don't need the appraiser to come out. When I did a refinance to just change our rate in 2020, I think we had a waiver, and it made sense with the amount of equity we had and everything. Like, it didn't make sense to have an appraiser physically come out when there just wasn't going to be any issue. And so, I mean, I support that. I think that's good. I think when AI wants to replace humans altogether, I mean, I have a problem with that for any profession. And I think that we need to have concerns about AI in the world and money being funneled up to these top companies and then stripping it away from everyone else. And so I think there's grave concerns overall. I know the worst case scenarios, people are like, everyone will be on food stamps, besides Zuckerberg and Musk, right? And so that's like a dystopian view of the world. I don't necessarily view it that way, but there's a place for it, but I sure hope that the human beings still get to have a role. And really where I think AI is, though, where it's a valuable tool, is that it assists the professional rather than replaces it. Like when real estate professionals smell like AI, I think it's gross and it's off-putting. And I don't want to interact with people by text message or any other way. If it's their AI bot, like, man, text someone else. I'm not interested. I want human relationships. And so, but with my work, yeah, over time, it's inevitable that I need to become more efficient. I need to become a better housing analyst. I need to become a better guy, when I'm typing appraisal reports and interpreting the market. And, I think AI can assist me there, but will it ever replace my thinking? I sure hope not. Will it replace me actually physically writing a blog post every week? No way. Because I'm committed to humanity. And I think that at the end of the day, that's what this business is about, relationships and being personable. And I hope to never export that part, to an algorithm.
Wow. That's a great answer. I like that, because those are some of the things that we're dealing with in our industry.
No doubt. Well, and I'm going to toss this over to Julie next, but the AI component, one of our main messages that I think is really important for people to understand, that get consumed by the fear that AI is going to replace them, is the idea that AI isn't actually capable of really replacing you if you are leaned into how to use it. AI is actually just going to take those that figure out how to use it and set them exponentially in ways that are gaps that we can't wrap our heads around from those that don't know how to use it. So you take a quality, high-level, educated, human connection driven professional like yourself, and you insert the use of AI to expand your reach, expand your efficiency, improve your knowledge, improve your ability to deliver value, and make more time for you to do the human-to-human components. And now you have created a value add and an expansion in business. That's the benefit of an AI. People that are afraid of AI and it taking their job are the ones that are unwilling to engage in using it, and then they're not able to offer all the benefits that AI can add to the equation. And so the saying that gets said a lot here is AI isn't going to replace your job. Those that figure out how to use AI are going to take your job. Yeah. And that's what we'd say a lot here. And I think it applies across the board. And what everybody's got to do is get over their fear of losing their job to AI and invest in becoming an expert in how to use it to their advantage. And now their business can take off. And so we talk about that every aspect: lending, real estate, title, social media, video content, you name it. And now we're talking about it on appraisal front, as well as underwriting and processing, et cetera. So love your perspective on it. And it should have a role, like you said. Like, it would be silly for it not to. It's just, hopefully it's not the whole enchilada, but it's something that can assist us. Absolutely. And Julie, I will give you kind of I know we're running up into a hard stop so shortly for you, and we don't want to blow through that for you, my friend Ryan. We greatly appreciate you, so I'll give Julie give you an opportunity to ask one or two more so we can get run out of here on time.
Oh, I'll just switch to the social media because I know he has to go.
Yeah.
But my tips for this week, I'm going to go there right now. I see a lot of people on social media doing introductions of themselves. Hi, I'm Ryan Lundquist, and then getting into their content. And they need to quit with the introductions. So no introductions, and their lighting. If your lighting isn't great, the algorithm won't push out your content. You need to make sure your lighting is on point. So those are my two tips.
How do you know that? You're incredibly
friend of a friend told me. Yes.
So what do you do when you're really, really unattractive and you need the lighting to hide you from that being exposed.
I look much better in the dark.
Because
and from a distance.
That's kind of my concern, is that if I turn the lighting on properly, then I'm actually the algorithm's gonna go, oh dear goodness, let's remove that.
Well, yeah, we do have a hard stop. I do want to say, Ryan, thank you. I hope that we can, talk you into coming back on at some point in the future. I really appreciate your blog. Like I said earlier, every week I share your blog with my entire loan officer group, with the entire company. So I really appreciate your perspective and appreciate you being here. I said earlier I was going to say something about slightly, and the market is slightly better, not very much better than what it started on Monday. So all of the reports of, unemployment up slightly. This morning, PPI, inflation up slightly. So nothing really market moving right now, at least when we came into this session. So the market's slightly better. So
yeah, I think I was going to say, I think the market feels like a profile picture. It's hotter on paper than real life, right? And so
I like that. So
we're in a place where like a little bit more pending contracts, and the hope is for a little bit more volume this year. But I think the real estate hype and everyone getting excited, it feels like that's a little stronger than the actual market. Even though, we're seeing some positive signs, we just got to keep it in check that, rates aren't low enough to create this really sharp change. There's a lot of buyers and sellers who are going to sit out until the market's more affordable. Okay. But then we just look at small change and go, hey, we're going to rejoice over, small bits of change that we are seeing. It's sort of like being on a diet. I got to count those first couple pounds. I can't just say, I've got all this way to go and it's going to take forever to get there. Look, I got to count a little bit of change that has happened and rejoice in that.
Well, that's a perfect example. I always say, like, you got to look at the top of the mountain. You got to know where you want to go. And then you got to look down at your feet, and you got to just start making one step at a time. And that's how you begin your journey, right? The singular actions that get you there. And I want to leave us, as we're closing to get you out of here, Ryan, and say that you mentioned doing a lot of private appraisals. And I think that's one of the values that a quality appraiser can offer to sellers, people that are looking for direction. And there's a lot of tools out there, things like HomeBot and different things that give people indications about maybe what their home is worth, but then they need to take what is an idea and cement that into some sort of a concrete component. We've developed a program that we are now serving our clients called our Give Value program, with a variety of vendors that are here to serve our clients, provide value, and your reputation precedes you. And it is something that I know Buzz will be reaching out to you and carrying a conversation as someone who we would love to see if you have an interest in being a part of that, as also being able to be a private a resource for those that are looking for private appraisals in various aspects. And we can just get into that discussion offline, where you can continue to be a resource for our ongoing 35 years of clients and database and partners, for opportunities for you to go out and help them identify exactly where they stand in their home. And I think you would be obviously huge asset, huge resource, and something that we, intend to offer to our clients, to give them savings, discounts, and trusted resources to provide them with information in their home ownership journeys and lifetimes. And so we'll reach out to you after with that and see if there's a partnership in that would work. And we're greatly appreciative of your time and not only your insights today. And we'll definitely have to have you back, because I know there's so much more to cover, and our technical difficulties, which prove that you can do everything right, do it many times, and when things go wrong, you just keep plugging ahead and we execute. So I hope you'll come back and join us again, my friend. And we're very, very grateful for your time with us this morning.
No, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. Great to talk. But yeah, I better scoot out. Gotta go inspect a house.
Okay.
That's what we do. So thank you again, Ryan, and for Buzz, Julie, myself. We're very, very grateful. And I'm going to drop the line that it's worth 10% more than it says on paper. So good luck in making that happen. And I didn't say it, even though it's on video here. So grateful. Thanks again. Good luck with it all. And we'll let you run and hope to have you back soon, my friend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ryan.
I'm going to pivot us here and kind of bring us into, there's some significant things that have happened and not so significant things that have happened. First and foremost, my just level of, what do you call it? Sedative that I need to take just to survive staring at those is increasing.
You know, just one more pill, Phil. You'll be fine.
Then I'm going to be asleep at my desk.
This weekend, I'm going to paint some of this white so that they shine like yours. It'll be good.
Here we go.
I don't know. Well, in fitting and kind of talking, let's to tie a bow a little bit on the appraisal conversation. I think a good discussion for us to have is what appraisals do to transactions is, and I say do, but there's such a critical component about tying a bow on buyer-seller agreement. And in different markets, they present different challenges, right? And when you see these markets where it's super hot and prices get bid up like crazy, appraisers often get vilified because they won't go and take a home that was listed for $750,000 and was bid up to $875,000. And they appraise it for $825,000, and it's like, well, this is all it was ever worth. You've got a bidding situation. This is where we are. This is legit. The comps, and you'll oftentimes get appraisers that are, pressured and pushed to make that go up to $875,000. And sometimes there's validation and resources that can make them be able to accommodate that, and other times it gets a little out of hand and they can't. And then in other situations when the market is suppressed and, you happen to get that right match where buyer writes an offer and they're in contract, and then the seller comes back and it's like, yeah, but based on the comps in the neighborhood, it's not supported. And now you're dealing with that. And now the buyer and seller have to work out, what does that mean?
I think there's a huge balance between the old saying of, well, the value is what a seller is willing to sell their house for, and a buyer is willing to pay for it. The balance comes back in on, that's great when you're talking about cash.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're a buyer and you're not going to bring your own money, you're going to be asking a lender to provide all of this money.
Mm-hmm.
And the buyer is technically saying, I'm going to pay you back. And what we've seen in the lending industry is, over the years, and I said obvious, didn't I?
Obviously.
That's one of my words that I'm not supposed to say.
Buzz and obviously are synonymous. That's his favorite go-to.
So the problem comes in with these standards, if you will, these policies and procedures of appraising based upon the other structures in the area that somebody else is willing to pay. The condition of all of these factors come in to where the appraiser, who is actually hired by the lender to protect us, our investment of all of this money, is bound by certain standards, industry standards, and so their ability to say, well, yeah, someone's willing to pay for it, so sure, it must be worth $875,000. But the problem is creating a document based on all those industry standards and requirements and protecting the lender. Because I lived through, you did, all of us lived through 2006, 7, and 8, when I owned several properties where I thought it was worth $600,000, but I turned around and found out that, oh, pretty soon someone's only willing to pay $300 for it. Mm-hmm. And so you're going, oh, wow, I owe $600, but they're only willing to pay $300. So those are the things that the appraiser has to balance on a day-to-day basis.
Right. I purchased my first home, 2007. Young guy trying to make his way, purchased a condo in the Antelope area, and paid $273,900 for it. 3-bedroom, 3-bath, kind of like an apartment complex style where the models were the same above. I bought the first floor, and I thought, oh, I'm buying one that'll be a great rental, because elderly that want to go up and down stairs, families that don't want to carry their kids up and down stairs. I had all this logic that sounded very logical at the time. Certainly wasn't the way that it played out, as the plumbing and the sewage issues that came to light meant I was now the one receiving all the plumbing from above coming out in my unit. Not the most logical scenario.
I've heard this story, and that was a nightmare.
It was a nightmare. However, to your point, I don't think that house was ever worth $273,900. It really wasn't, and it was appraised for it, and that was the conditions of the market. But I was sitting on a home that at its lowest point was appraising for $40,000.
Yep.
And I'm holding on to a loan for $273,000. Now, that is not a good feeling to be in as a buyer. Now, I'm very exposed. What am I going to do? And there are stories like that everywhere. And again, I think what's interesting, just highlighting it from the appraiser perspective, and something for people to think about. I know I talked a lot about this with clients going on, is like, their job is to make sure that they're setting everybody up for success.
Yes.
Right now in this moment, the only thing everybody's sort of thinking about is, I want to buy this home. I want to sell this home, and I need this thing to happen so we can complete the transaction. But if you fast forwarded the clock and they gave you the value that you wanted, and 6 months later, your house was worth $1,000 less. Okay, you're fine. $100,000 less, you'd be going, whoa.
Well, and
that level of risk, and vice versa. So I think their responsibility is important. And I think it's also incumbent upon real estate agents and lending professionals to appropriately defend appraisers for what it is exactly that their role is, right?
Well,
and I think that's a good indication. And people like Ryan that have been doing it a very long time are the type of people you can trust to give you good feedback, right? And that's important in so many ways. I'm not sure what's ringing in our background, but
I like that.
Julie, when you look at it as a title and mortgage and real estate veteran, what's been your experience?
I actually have a real life experience right now with my parents who have lived in their home for 20 years. Agent listed it for $450. Had coming down to the wire, the finish line, and the appraisal just came in $100,000 under what it was listed for.
Where is this house?
Pollock Pines.
Oh,
so Pollock Pines, for instance, that is a different market, right? You're dealing with fire, you're dealing with snow, you're dealing with, you know what I mean? So it can make or break a deal. So we are getting it reappraised because I think it was so far off, and I think the comps support a much higher price. But back to your point, like, where is the discretion? Do you know what I mean? Like, I do want to protect, the lender wants to get protected and not over lend on a property. And I get that. But at the same time, the comp support that sales price. You know what I mean?
Well,
it's a tough.
You see it on both sides.
You do. I do see both sides.
On that side,
yeah,
you've got a seller that has a house, and to your point earlier, saying, well, I don't want to, I don't want to be screwed by selling my house for way too little, and leave a lot of money on the table. We've seen that. So there is this balancing act. And what I'd almost say there is what Ryan had mentioned, is this geographic competency,
correct,
or familiarity. That was that an appraiser that lives in Roseville,
right? And
the AMC pushed him up to Pollock Pines, and so they didn't even want to drive up there in the first place. They were pissed off that it was going to take an hour to get there, an hour to get back.
Right.
And, so they don't like the country, and they like living in subdivision heaven. And so is their geographic competency at the right level? That's why I would ask for another appraisal.
And yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
So we're waiting for that. But yeah, you see what I'm saying? There's just so much discrepancy, especially in areas like that we're talking about. Nevada, especially Truckee, Tahoe.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where you got to have a professional, because you know what I mean? Do they know the ski resort's 20 minutes away, or you know what I mean?
Exactly. All the things in the lifestyle. I said this to start, but like Carmichael, Fair Oaks, like it's this classic example of, and I can picture my grandfather's street. My grandfather grew up on Bannister, and my mother lived there with my aunt, and they lived on 3 acres. They raised cows and horses and sheep, and they had a barn, and on Bannister, like, this was old Fair Oaks, where this is at the time when my mom,
beautiful. It's a beautiful street,
and that go across to the river, right?
Yes.
And my mom used to ride her horse with her sister, my aunt, all over Sacramento, like. And that was, kind of a, not only, kind of cool to think about, but that was the way it was then. But then you can go, and there's this nice house that's been forever. It hadn't been remodeled. It was lived in. It was well kept. They had a barn. And then next door, you've got a house that looks like if you blew too hard, it might just fall down, And then you go 2 doors down, and there's somebody who's either sold it, bought it, and now there's a brand new 2010 beautiful, I don't know if I would call it a mansion or not a mansion, but it is a very large, wonderful home with landscaping all the way throughout, and it's on 1.5 acres. And
beautiful. I know the house.
Beautiful home, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you go a couple doors down, and there's essentially what's become a daycare, like a preschool. And then you go a couple doors, and there's some older homes similar, and you go up and down the street, and every one of them is unique. Now, that brand new home that is pristine can't be compared to the house that's about to blow down if you blow on it too hard. And to a degree, it's kind of hard to compare it to what used to be my grandfather's home, because it's 3 acres and it's not been remodeled. And it's multiple lots that can be divided. Like, there's these neighborhoods where there's a lot of that. And so it takes an experienced appraiser to understand, where do I go to find comps that support? So, because in the end, a homeowner who's looking for a property that is land where they can raise horses and cows and have like almost a farm like life is looking for one thing. Someone looking to live near the river that wants to live in a brand new house with a little bit of acreage and grow in is looking for another thing. And someone who maybe is looking for that shack to blow down, that maybe wants to buy it, to tear it down and build their own thing. Like, they're all different motivations.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't properly adjust for them, how do you come up with a valuation? One would argue, in like your tract home environment, how could you possibly value that home at $1.5 million or $2 million, when next door the house looks like, let's be honest, maybe they're selling drugs out of it, like like it's a crack house.
Well, and there is adjustments that have to be made for that, because a typical buyer that's buying $1.5 million home isn't going to want to see that as their panoramic view of the rest of the neighborhood. So that does affect it a little bit. And this is one of the reasons why, if I was buying a house, and I would not want to accept any of the AI types of systems. I wouldn't want an appraisal waiver if I was buying a house, because sure, there's data that says it's worth that, but the other function that I think needs to be identified, the other function that appraisers have, is they actually inspect the house. They look for damage and problems, functional obsolescence, and anything that could lead to problems. And those
detail functional obsolescence, because that's a great word, one that I would assume many consumers don't know.
Well,
and I think it's a great word to why not? Let's take a moment and let's explain what is functional obsolescence. I have a lot of examples in my head, but why don't you give a couple?
Well, a lot of the functional obsolescence is things that used to be popular, or things that to one borrower or owner was a great thing. Functionally, it's lost its value, either over time or just because it was something strange. And I can't really come off of anything right off the top of my head.
Garbage compactor.
What?
Garbage compactor.
Well, garbage compactors. Well, one of the things I was going to say is, to me, to this person that bought a house, taking the 2-car garage and making it into a conversion of, I've got a sunken living room now with, that's big, and I've got a TV in there and it's right off the kitchen, or making it into a bedroom for one of your elder kids. That's functional obsolescence, meaning for that one person, that was it fit the need for them. But to the rest of the market, having a 2-car garage is much more important than having that sunken den and not having some place to park their cars. So there's certain things that people do, things in the backyard, a lot of like built-in, I've got a built-in basketball court, half court, back there. And to those people's kids, maybe to that grown-up, you would be a guy, you might want to go out there and shoot hoops and that kind of stuff. But for the typical buyer, it's like, okay, there's a big concrete slab out there with a basketball goal on it. It's kind of obsolete for me. I'm not going to go out there and do a game of half court.
I think you're selling those a little short, because I think some of those are like lifestyle things, to be honest. Because I think like functional obsolescence of like somebody who made a remodel and remodeled a kitchen, and somehow in the kitchen there's a water closet in the kitchen.
Absolutely.
And so now you're in the kitchen, and then you open a door and it's like, why is there a toilet water closet in the middle of the kitchen?
Absolutely.
And then you come out and no water or sink or anything. Water closet, come out, now you have to wash your hands in the kitchen sink. Or functional obsolescence. Every bathroom in the entire house is either inside of a bedroom, therefore there's no communal bathroom, and there's no access to a bathroom that isn't through multiple locked doors, or
the same way with the shower, walk-in showers with no bathtub in the house. Again, functionally, that doesn't appeal to the greater amount of borrowers that might have kids that they want to give them a bath, or someone that likes baths. So there are certain design features, just like you're saying, especially things that happened with really older houses. I live downtown.
Older houses have a lot of them, right?
Yeah,
And
I live downtown my house was built in 1919. And so there are certain things that functionally you wouldn't build a house that way now.
Exactly. And some of them are livable and like they're normal and they're just like, a little quirky, but then there's also ones where it's like, okay, that's like outright disruptive. It's like having two doors put in where you literally can't open the two doors because they bang into each other and like they're unable to operate, or someone put an oven in a bedroom and you're going, what? Like there's an oven in the bedroom, not the kitchen. Like these types of things, the functional obsolescence of like people making these decisions to support a particular lifestyle that works for them, but when it goes to reselling, it goes that doesn't work for the average consumer. There are a lot of older homes that progressively people make those decisions, as well as unpermitted additions.
Yep.
Unpermitted additions is a common thing, and I think there's certainly the older the home, the older the community, there's this thing called character, and then there's this thing called disruption, and there's programs and there's products. There's products like 203Ks and 203K full-fledged renovations, things that can solve for this. But appraisers are tasked with calling these things out and identifying that. Right. And we as lenders, title, like you start to identify the risks, and oftentimes people will, in the desire to get into a home as it increases, will start to want to overlook maybe a certain thing simply to finally achieve that dream of home ownership, but then be forced to try to navigate, well, how do I fix this? And so I think, again, having Ryan on, I think is a great conversation because I think it just highlights that, look, there is a role for an appraiser, right?
Absolutely.
And, when you remove a lot of those equations and we start talking about appraisal waivers, a lot of those homes that are in the appraisal waiver category, they're lacking these things. Like they're standard built, they're lacking functional obsolescence, they're lacking some of the things that would create a need for a deeper assessment of a home, and there's a mix of all of that, and I think it's a great topic. We haven't talked a lot about that, maybe at all, really, during our show, and I think it's a part of the reminder to our audience, to partners, to those of us in the industry, that building a team of experts that are all out to look out for the customer, the seller, the buyer, and those people involved in the families that they are moving in with, and supporting the children and their significant others, maybe taking care of elderly, family members. That's all important stuff. And
absolutely. I would never, I've bought a lot of homes, built homes. I would never, there's 2 inspections, actually 3 inspections that I would definitely recommend spending the money on. Is, even if you got an appraisal waiver, I would still want an independent appraiser to come out there and take a look at it. I would pest report, a structural pest inspection, because they do a whole lot more than just look for ants and termites. They look for all types of different problems with the house. And
what do they do when they find the armadillos and the scorpions
if
and all the weird things in the
Texas,
Texas community? Yeah,
and
in the Texas community. What do they do?
Those are grandfathered in. You get your own armadillo, and you get your whole army.
You name it, you call it a pet, and you move it in.
That's right. They're very loving.
Are they?
You just don't want to cuddle with them.
Do they sleep in your bed? Do they join the party like a cat at the end of the bed?
It's not a cat like at the end of the bed, but they're actually really sweet animals.
Would you ever do that, Julie?
No.
Would you ever have an armadillo?
I would definitely.
No animals in the house.
No animals in the house.
No.
What
not even a cat.
No.
Not a dog.
No.
We recently added.
I know people aren't going to like me after saying that, but yeah.
we recently
Your social
added.
media is going to take a hit for
I
this.
know it's
we've
going to
got
take a
cats.
big hit.
Yeah, it is going to take a hit.
I know.
But our 10-year-old for his 11th birthday, his request was a hamster.
Oh.
And so we recently added a hamster. And initially he had I don't even remember what his initial name was, but out of nowhere, the kids, I think my son just decided to call him TD. And I was like, are you trying to do like a reference to Keefe D? Like somehow you got associated with the killer of Tupac, and so Kiki D exists, but he does it with a British accent, which is quite entertaining. And Kiki D is a vicious, finger-biting hamster, one that goes out of his way to reach the cage. I took him to a UC Davis game, and we got
You took the hamster to a UC
I took
Davis?
my son to a UC Davis game, and I got him a seat pad, and then I took him into the locker room since connected to the program, and got him signatures of a lot of the players and hung out. And then I came into his room one day, and Kiki D had managed to reach through and pull the little, and he was trying to nibble on the edge, and he was eating at the edge of this foam device that was signed. That pets of all types are a favorite in our household. So I don't think you do well here. We've got I'm a big dog fan. Our dogs have passed. We've got 2 cats. I made the mistake of wanting to make our family happy and surprise them with a little lizard during COVID. I left my office down the street one day, and there was an alligator lizard running through our office. And I thought, oh, that's cool. Let me catch the little guy. Caught him. Oh, he's a little tiny guy. It's cool. I'll go get a little cage at the pet store, and I'll bring home a little lizard. Now they'll have a little fun, just like a fish. Went to the pet store, showed them the lizard, and they said, oh, that's cool. Here's what you can get. And I thought, well, I'll get them another lizard to go with it. And I videoed a host of lizards that were in the cage, and I thought, geckos look cool. Small cage when they're all very tiny at this point. This is on me. Ignorance, trying to please everybody, but not really doing my research. I get a lot of pushback. Not a lot of pushback, just a very strong, get that one, Dad. Get that one, Dad. And I'm looking at it going, why do you guys pick that one? He's not colorful. Not like the geckos. Not like it. He's brown and he's boring, which turns out to be not just a gecko that only live like a few years and go through, but he is a lizard that lives 20 years.
Oh,
that was not the plan.
He could probably live outside.
Yeah,
he could probably live outside. And just to go on record, to transition out of the lizard story, I do love dogs, but I love them outside.
Outside, right?
Okay, so I want to go on record.
There you go.
I do love animals, but they're outside.
Okay. You're trying to save your.
I am. I need to put down the shovel. I know.
I
know.
This is sponsored by the FPCA.
By Petco.
And
right. So I purchased a bearded dragon, and by bearded dragon is like this big, and I'm thinking, awesome. We got that. We got this little alligator lizard. Bought the cage, and I'm thinking, I'm going to get this cage. And then the vet or the person at the front says, no, that's not going to be a big enough cage for your alligator lizard and your bearded dragon. Okay. How much bigger? Oh, about this size. Okay, that's bigger than I thought. They get a little bigger. Cool. Brought them home, set them in. Off we go. Then as I get informed, oh, this is a 20-year pet, I'm going, what the hell did I do? I didn't intend a 20-year lizard.
Yeah.
Promptly of which, a week later, we came home and all we found was the tail of the alligator lizard that I had caught, because little did I research the bearded dragon.
That's his meal.
That's his meal. So he then turned around and ate the alligator lizard, which was named Mike. And my incredibly hilarious oldest daughter, then promptly did a whole ceremony around, we would really like to thank Mike for his contribution to bringing Ike to us, and like a very hilarious,
Yeah.
sarcastic thing. So now we have this massive, like I'm talking this long alligator lizard byproduct that has become our bearded dragon, and a massive cage. And I don't touch it. I don't deal with it, but
Yeah. That's like buying a bird. You know, birds live for 70, 80 years, some of them. And you hear people buy them and then realize, oh my gosh, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And what do I do with the bird? Nobody in my family likes this bird. It's
lots
mean to
of
them.
that. So then now that we got
those kind of
Kiki as a hamster, I'm like, boy, we got another one going here. And Kiki, is the favorite. The cats are very obsessed with them. The cats, if ever gets out, Kiki D may end up suffering the same fate as Mike did on the old front. But I think tying it back, just being silly, I think, when families pick homes, right, and families are trying to settle in, right, they find the home where they picture making memories.
Mm-hmm.
Call back to our Give Memories campaign and what we're about. Our job is to try to help them, guide them, and to also not let their emotional kind of instincts override their what's best for them instincts. And we all do this, and we're all involved. To kind of wrap as we're hitting the end here, give me a few stories of maybe some of your favorite transactions in your 20 years of some things that you've done. And if you guys need a moment, I can give you one to kind of give you a moment to collect your thoughts. But some stories that when you look back and you go, this is why I do it. Like, these stories really make me feel like I have a purpose. and let's wrap with that. And that'll be our end to the show today.
I mean, I just go back to the first time home buyers who, looking at their faces and feeling the emotion and seeing them buy their first home is something you can't ever replace. It's why we do what we do, right? Like, we always got to go back to that. And I think that's important. And sometimes we forget that in our industry, that it's just about a paycheck or commission or whatever it is. And I think we need to remember how important that is, just home buying and the purchase itself. Buzz,
Totally
how about you?
Been doing this for 40 years. And when I was actually originating, and now I manage and don't actually work with home buyers directly, but for many, many years, my clients were so special to me, most of them. Today, I see a lot of the loan officers where they don't get to meet and be part of that life. A lot of times, the standard now is, I'm going to send you a link. I want you to go online. I want you to take the loan application. I want you to download your W-2s and pay stubs. And quite frankly, it's so much more efficient now. It's so much quicker that's kind of, we're living at the speed of closing nowadays, and everybody wants it quicker and easier. And so it is. It's much more efficient, but I feel that loan officers today kind of miss some of the connection with their clients that some of us that started before we had computers, really. Everything was by hand, and but we would go and we'd sit down in the kitchen with them to take the loan application. We'd actually help them go back in the drawer and find the W-2s and the bank statements and pay stubs and pull it all together. And so there was so many different times, and I kind of specialized at that time in first time home buyers, low to moderate income type of borrowers. And I remember I've always been someone, my background was construction. I built homes and did remodels, and there were times where the appraiser you'd come down to the end and the appraiser would say, oh, you've got to remove all these bushes and get this done. And I'm out there on a Wednesday afternoon with my shears and my truck, and I'm removing this big bush that needed to be removed, or painting the side of the house because it needed painting, or whatever the case is. There were so many times over the years that kind of, and I wasn't anything special. That's kind of what happened with the loan officers. You go back to the 80s, 90s, trying to close the deal. You got to close it tomorrow, and something needs to be painted. Well, I'm out there painting. Mm-hmm. I've got ladders. I've got a truck. I've got it all. And I've trimmed back trees. I've done, painting. So that's what, when I say that this industry has been so wonderful to me, has been such a, 40 years, you look back, and those are the things that I remember showing up with the buyer and us doing something, both of us going, yeah, we got to get this done because I got to get the inspector back out here. Mm-hmm. And we're painting, we're doing things. And those are the things that I remember working with the buyers. And when I run into those people, that almost inevitably, that's the first thing. Yeah, I remember we were out there trying to get this thing closed. Or I remember you showed up with your truck and helped us move such and such. Because all my agents knew I had a pickup truck. And so, but that's what I remember, those things. And those people remembered those stories with you. And so there was so numerous, but that's the things that I enjoyed. Sure. I remember some of the nightmares, things that happened, but the ones that really, really make it all worthwhile as I look back over 40 years, it was those times where I jumped in the car, went over and fixed something so that it would close. And, because a homeowner, they were probably just as handy, but they didn't know tell me what to do. And so I'll do it so that I know that the inspector, so we were on the phone and getting them to come back at the, anyway, those were the things that I remembered.
Yeah, those are stories, and I'll wrap shortly because we're up against our clock here. The ones that stick out to me: single moms, single dads that had either been through marital, separations, divorces, and were struggling and really didn't believe that they could secure a home for them and their children that would put them on a path to resetting their life, and being the one that was able to move the chess pieces, help them set their path, and then help them execute finding a home. And from the standpoint of balancing out, there's a lot of ungrateful, when you do this business long enough, you receive all types. You get a lot of ungrateful, a lot of grateful, a lot of kind of just in the middle. But the ones that make the business so worthwhile are the ones that are grateful to the help that you've given them, because you helped them make something happen that they themselves were so afraid to even ask because they didn't think it was possible.
Yep.
And so I've got some stories that stick out with me to this day of moms had been through divorces, and they had kids, and now they're in their own home, and they're like, I can afford, I can live, I can take care of my family. Or a father who's now, learning how to raise their children on their own, and can't cook a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for their kids, but is trying to figure out how to get into a home. And those ones to me have always made a big impact on them. And the same thing can go for couples that were struggling on their first home. But those ones, for me, I have several where they really didn't believe they could. They just knew I need to find a secure housing situation for my children. And so I say that, and we'll wrap with that. And I say that that's what this business is about. That's why we do it. Partners that work with us should have that same vision. We're here to make a living and make a career. But I've always believed you do right by other people. You support other people. You build other people up. You do what's best for them. You help them succeed in life. and your success will come directly from your willingness and unselfishness to focus on their needs, and and the rewards are off the charts. So having somebody in your corner that can help you with that, and having a group that's aligned, is where the magic happens. So I think those are great stories to end on. I am tremendously grateful for the two of you. Week in and week out, you guys bring so much insight. You bring so much energy, and you inspire me. So to our audience, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for putting up with a little bit of our technical difficulties. We're going to continue to bring in guests from all over. We have some great ones lined up. Thank you very much again to Ryan Lundquist for not only showing his expertise and insight, but for being patient as we got settled and rolling. Ryan, can't wait to have you back. Again, if you haven't, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us weekly. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud. Go follow our shorts and our clips on TikTok and YouTube, Shorts, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Pinterest, Blue Sky, you name it. We're there. It's Twitter. We would love to hear your comments. Keep checking us out. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Phil Rasmussen. For Julie and Howard, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next Friday.